Welcome to The People I Play With. This is the show where I interview, well, the people I play with. I'm your host, Jesse Bernico. Hello and welcome. Today's guest is Bre Seale. Hello, Bre.
Hello.
Bre and I are co-workers, and I've been running some horror games at the office for the Halloween season, and Bre has been a very enthusiastic participant, and I'm super excited about that. And I want to talk about the game of The Quick that we played. But before I get into the specifics of that game, I want to talk about you as a player in general. So, based on whatever game experience that you've had in the past, what do you think is your strong suit? Like, what does Bre bring to the table?
What I bring to the table is a little bit of chaos. I'll commit to a bit and decide, even if this is a bad decision, it's a decision that fits a character, so we just got to go with it. I want to do things and then see the consequences.
As gamers, I think we think of these games as things we do, and we don't necessarily think of it as something that we can get better at, but I do. So I'm a little curious, like, is there anything you think you could improve about your play?
I think it would be learning how to bounce off of people more. Sometimes it can feel like it's either listening to someone do something or inserting myself. And I think finding the midpoint of building something together instead of like switching back and forth.
Oh, okay, I can see that. I've actually had other people that I've interviewed talk about, like, listening more to other people and being involved. So with all that in mind, the game we played was called The Quick, and it advertises itself as Nordic noir with ghosts, which is kind of a fancy way of saying supernatural murder mystery. And in that game, there is a concept of harm. And harm can represent physical or emotional or psychological damage. And I want to talk about the moment when your character first took harm. So, your character, who was a journalist, had just gone off on their own to investigate what they suspected to be a haunted boat. And then a moment later, they were somewhere else holding a bloody blunt object and about a half hour of missing time. And you decided that they needed to know what happened. And you tracked down some harbor video footage and you took some psychological harm upon discovering that you had killed someone. I think a lot of role players can be super sensitive about the loss of agency over their characters. And so I wanted to talk about that moment, when you realized that your character had been possessed into this horrible action. Like, how did that impact your play?
I think it's like a good thing to be conscious of. It was something that was very absent of anything that I think would make at least most people uncomfortable. It wasn't something that felt weird or targeted. It was honestly kind of exciting and funny, especially since we already had like Ramses as the character. Clearly, this is just some other person where this can happen to. So I think it was one of those things where I try to latch on to like whatever piece of characterization I can and then really form the character around it. So the idea of like this poor journalist who was like, oh no, I've been an accessory to murder and was super worried about this person being alive and they were absolutely not alive. It was a fun jumping off point for the character, I guess.
So you feel that, like, the character that was in jail, Rasmussen, who had obviously also committed a murder, perhaps, not in his right mind. You feel that the foreshadowing of that kind of helped you process this later event.
Oh yeah. And I'll also say I felt like you definitely gave uh proper warning, I guess. There were many times where you're like, so you're getting on the boat? And I was like, yeah, I'm getting on the boat. And I knew exactly what that question meant. And I was like, something's bad's going to happen when I get on this boat. But this is what you would do. I'm a journalist here to investigate things. I'm going to poke my nose in places I shouldn't.
I'm glad that worked for you, because I've met people that were really super twitchy about that, and I wasn't sure how it was gonna play, but it was one of those things where it's like, well, she's on the boat alone, and I know what
No.
happens when you're on the boat alone.
I felt very much like this is an isolated thing that happened. You have so much freedom in how you react to it, how you deal with it, how you spin it. And honestly, that moment was what also probably pushed me towards the bit of the weird ending I pushed for, because I was like, oh, I'm in the same boat as Rasmussen now. We I got to clear both of our names. We're both in trouble.
Well, it's funny you should mention the ending because now I want to talk about the end of the scenario. You had discovered that this local fisherman, Johann Elk, was murdered by Kelly Jenkins, the captain of this corporate maintenance ship. And you first found her in this pub where you goaded her into all but admitting that she committed this murder. And then you goaded her into taking you onto the vessel, and then you goaded her further into actually launching the vessel out toward the experimental floating wind farm. And then when the corporation sent out these like security vessels, you goad her again into making a navigational mistake and crashing the boat into one of the huge wind turbines, which throws everyone into the sea. And finally it's all kind of culminates in you offering all of this up as kind of a sacrifice to appease the ghosts of Johann Elk. And all of this is predicated on a series of die rolls, all with escalating stakes. And you only survive any of this because your character happened to have this incredibly lucky talent that just sort of lets you get out of danger. So I have to admit, I found the whole thing rather gutsy. And I want to know where did that come from?
I think there was some level of like, let's just go and see what happens and like enjoy failing, which I expected to do more of when I pursued that route. Um, and also there were some things where I was like, okay, I picked up on this a little soon, like, oh, Rasmussen definitely committed these murders. There's video evidence, and there's no like court that would not indict him because ooh, Ghost did it. So it was like there's got to be something else. And then I think at that point I also thought there was more of a Nordic twist to it because I'd taken the time to investigate the rock. So some of it I was like, maybe if I make an offering to the sea goddess, she will also like I don't know wipe away I don't memory. I don't know what I thought.
There's definitely an element of that. I mean, the primary murder weapon is this Viking sunstone thing, and the ship is named after like the storm goddess. I think I must appease the storm was certainly a valid place to go. And I think this ties back to what you said in the beginning about uh consequences be damned, right? And that's why I really enjoyed it, because it was just this rolling set of social gambits, right?
I was very worried that it was annoying, so I was like, we're in this deep. We're just gonna keep going. Like I love non-combat solutions to things, and that usually means like social hijinks, which I just find delightful.
The quick is primed for that because there's that mechanic, the severing. That's how you send these ghosts back to wherever. But the game is very clear that that's an open-ended action, right? Like anything that you feel qualifies. And in this case it was, I'm going to destroy the windmill, I'm going to bring down the ship, I'm going to throw Kelly and all her crew into the sea.
I'm
uh,
also realizing for some reason during the playthrough, I got in my head that the windmill is the point of contention. We have to somehow destroy the windmill. Before even the plan of like drive the boat into the windmill came to fruition, I was like, how the hell we're gonna destroy this giant windmill?
Interesting. So it was an idea that occurred to you earlier.
I think you said something where you have to have like an idea of what the line of events that led to Johann's death and also something that ties it together. So for some reason, I got in my head, it's the windmill. So obviously we have to somehow destroy the windmill to free him. And I was like, I'm just a journalist. I'm not going to get C4 anywhere. I don't know how I'm going to do this.
And so that's really interesting to me because that is exactly the way this game wants you to think, right? So the fact that you were already thinking around the lines of, I have to destroy this windmill even earlier, that's exactly what I'm interested in, right? Like that is the very reason that I asked these questions. That's really fascinating to me.
I think one of my favorite moments was coming to a understanding semi with Johann where I was like, I'm going to take the keys just so you don't do this anymore. Maybe we could come to an understanding for a little bit. And then the like completely the moment after being like, this is a ghost ship. He could pilot the ship without the keys. But there's something symbolic to like, hey buddy, I'm gonna figure this out for you. Just chill out for a little bit.
That's something that the text doesn't talk about a lot. It basically says ghosts kind of function the way you want them to. There's a reason the core mechanic is just called try. So sure, let's try it. Let's see what happens. You actually had two of those roles where you sort of tried to level with this dead guy, right? In an effort to at least maybe slow down the murder rate. All of that together combines into the main thing I think about this game, which is that detective stories are ultimately sort of about justice. This whole scenario starts with a local pediatrician being arrested for a murder. Then you find out that this like huge energy corporation has forced these, poor local fishermen out of their fishing rights. That same company is only investing in these like wind turbine things as PR cover for obtaining, oil drilling rights in the Arctic. And finally, there's this ship captain that murders one of these local fishermen and covers it up with the company's help. And you did manage to appease the ghost, but the energy corp pulls out all the lawyers and the PR managers to sort of distance themselves from the whole thing. So I'm kind of curious: is did you feel like you achieved any kind of justice out of this situation for whatever definition of justice you may hold in your heart?
I think yes, and I think it's very funny. I feel strongly about like right and wrong. And the way I feel strongly about right and wrong has a lot to do with intention. So to me, like Rasmussen is 100% innocent. This was someone who didn't do anything. They were used to do something. And the flip side, even the crew that was with Kelly are somewhat guilty because they remain silent about that. Now, should they have died for that? Probably not. It was probably not a death sentence worthy. I think one of the goals starting out, we gotta get this guy out of jail. He didn't do anything wrong. He's clearly a good guy. He saved people's lives. He's just like someone trying to live their life. So even once it was okay, we knew how to take care of this ghost. A lot of my thoughts during playtime was, how does this help Rasmussen? So I think for ways that I felt mattered, like on personal levels, justice was served in the sense that this ghost got peace, Rasmussen was free. In the larger scale, it kind of sucked that the company was able to just kind of like clean their hands, but it felt very realistic. You can help people, but you can't always change like institutions.
Because they were just like, oh, well, we're just going to bury you in legal paperwork. So in some ways, you as the journalist who's just like, I'm just going to take matters into my own hands and sacrifice Kelly and her crew to the storm goddess. That's all the justice there was to be had here, right?
I think there's probably a world where uh it somewhat gets done the proper way, but I think Rasmussen definitely goes to jail in that timeline. There's not really a a logical way to save him. To me, I don't that doesn't feel like justice. I am also of an opinion that actions themselves don't have morality. It's what they're done to achieve. So it was very funny going along like investigating and I'm like, you know that videotape of me killing someone? Could you like erase that? This is gonna sound really bad and really selfish, but we're gonna be in a lot of trouble and not able to help anyone if if one of us gets in trouble too.
Once you realize, innocent people are, being possessed by ghosts, murder people, we're just gonna take those tapes and make sure that nobody ever sees them. Do you have a question for me about this game we played?
Were there things you wish I hadn't done?
My honest answer is no, of course not. The games I like to play and the GMing style I employ is meant to be somewhat interrogative. I play games because I like to pose, questions and see where the players come up with the answers. Anything that you did, I think, was spot on in this game. I don't think if a player is legitimately expressing this is how I want to respond to this situation and isn't, trying to be funny or trying to be ironic or trying to be super clever, but is literally playing from the heart of this is really what I want to do, then I don't think that can be wrong. I rarely find fault with what players want to do. And when I do, it's because quite honestly, they're kind of acting out. They're not really playing the game. When you really look at it, you're like, oh, you're checked out. You're not actually engaging with anything here. You're just trying to make people laugh or do something stupid, or you're bored. And so you're not taking the situation seriously. So no, in terms of like what you did in this game, absolutely not. Everything was kosher. Everything was, on point. I have never felt that you have done something dishonest or not earnest or not acting from a place of like genuine curiosity and engagement with the material. And that's why I've enjoyed playing with you immensely, because I think your commitment to whatever we're doing here has been great, right?
One of the things I really enjoy once I get really into an RPG is just there's a lot of things in day-to-day life where I am doing a lot of checking to see how I am being perceived by others, if that makes sense. If I'm Am I making someone uncomfortable? What are they thinking? How are they feeling? How do I direct this conversation? How do I keep everyone calm and whatever? And once I get really into an RPG, that just goes out the window. And it's one of the few times that I feel that like really just gone where I'm just doing whatever. So then my immediate fear and guilt afterward is, uh-oh, I didn't have any of my limiters on. Did I just become an obnoxious menace?
Well, I mean, in some ways, you even brought that up at the beginning, where you're like, I have concerns that maybe I could do better listening to other people. There's always room to better fit what you're bringing to the table in with what other people are bringing to the table. But that doesn't mean that what you're bringing to the table is flawed to begin with. But even when you get better, that doesn't mean that the games you played in the past were trash. You might look back at some games and go, wow, that was really cringy. I might do something different. Does that mean in the moment what you were doing was bad or obnoxious? No, of course not. So just to begin to sort of wrap things up, I like to ask people, do you have a favorite memory from a game you played?
I do think one of my favorites was 10 Candles, just being like, I'm just gonna kill myself then. You don't get to use my like life force for whatever the sacrifice is, and then just falling on the altar anyway. I was like, that's hilarious. That's incredible. This dramatic moment of no, you don't get to win. Oopsie daisy.
That was in fact an extremely powerful moment in the Ten Candles game. I'm going to kill myself so that I do not become a sacrifice. And then we staked that on a die roll that went bad, and it was like, no, all you do is just sacrifice yourself. Totally great moment. And then my last question for you is, are there any games or even game concepts that you haven't had a chance to play that you would really love to play?
I've read through the Monster of the Week book, and that seems really neat.
Well, Monster of the Week is a very popular game. Well, Bre, thank you for talking with me and being one of the people I play with. And I don't know, hopefully we'll play more games in the future.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to The People I Play With. Please join me in 2 weeks when I interview Adam McConaughey about life and death while playing Shine a Light.